Good afternoon, and bravo to everyone who's still here. So your child goes to try to for a gap year after the IDF service, and you pack warm clothes and a first aid kit and a satellite phone, and also phone numbers for advocates and attorneys, and a route for escaping certain countries if somebody attempts to arrest that person. How did we come to a point where released soldiers are afraid to go abroad, where our prime minister even can't go abroad, when Israelis feel unwelcome around the world? 30 years that I've been dealing with the claims against Israel as head of international law for IDF, and as a researcher, we were always looked at very closely. But this blitz of accusations against Israel, such as we've experienced during the past 18 months, is something that I do not recall from the past. So let's try and understand this battle. In the IDF, like in the IDF, it will have three parts. First part, we'll talk about the threat and the accusations against Israel. Second part, it's the role of the courts in this battle. And third part, after we understood the problems, we'll talk about solutions, what can and should be done. So let's start. What is the battle? What is the goal? How does it work? The idea is to make everyone, or as many people in the world, think that Israel is a state that is a criminal, that is committing severe crimes, and even that its mere existence is illegal. But what is the goal? The goal is not to turn Israel to an unpopular state. This battle, it's important to understand, is part of and simultaneous to the military battle. In the same way that the military battle is there to hurt Israel physically, this battle is there to hurt us on the justification of our existence and isolate us. What is the method? Accusations, severe accusations against Israel that are being communicated through the media, through the social media, through campuses, through the academy around the world, and also through public campaigns, strikes, signs, influences, etc. What are the means in this battle? So this battle has two main weapons: factual accusations and judicial accusations. The factual accusations are based or appear in reports of NGOs for human rights and reporters and investigators, but the main player behind them is the UN. The UN always publishes accusations against Israel. A couple of months ago, a researcher from INSS, Dr. Tammy Kanner, checked the data published by the UN, that everybody is based on, about the numbers of trucks that enter with humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. And she saw that these data is always lower than the number of actual trucks going into Gaza. What was interesting to see is that in a separate sheet that was undiscoverable, they mentioned that they do not count all of the trucks. So, in fact, they presented false data, and they did it on purpose. With their intention was to make people, to mislead people. And on this basis, we see the unfair judicial accusations that appear in papers by jurists and in conferences, and you can hear them everywhere, also in juristic decisions, which brings me to the second part, the role of the courts. And we have two main players here. The two international courts, both are in Hague. The first one is the ICJ. It's the older one. It was founded in 1945, and it's supposed to discuss conflicts between states with the agreement of those states, and also give reports to advise the different branches of the UN. On December 2023, shortly after the October massacre, South Africa went to the ICJ and asked it to determine that Israel is performing genocide in Gaza at the Palestinians, and also to instruct Israel to stop fighting. What does South Africa have to do with Gaza? Would the ICJ even have any power over Israel? It's a whole different discussion. I will not start to talk to you about what exactly is the definition of genocide, but I can promise you one thing, which is Israel is not performing genocide in Gaza. Israel showed up for the discussion. We can see Israel representatives giving very good arguments, and despite that, the ICJ did not just overturn it on the threshold. They did not give the order. They said it's too early at this point to determine that Israel is performing genocide. It's a preliminary point, but they did give order Israel not to perform genocide and also to bring more humanitarian aid into Gaza. But what's important for us is that they fixated the idea that Israel is performing genocide. And from now on, in every strike and every sign, it's always stop the genocide in Gaza, stop the Israeli genocide. In other words, Israel is being accused in crimes performed by the Nazis. The court has not yet given its final decision, and they also can't execute it. For its decisions to be applicable, we need the Security Council to make that decision final, which is not a soon, but it does have significance. Their statements have an important stance in the international arena. The other court, also in Hague, also has strength. This is the ICC. They don't deal with conflicts between states, but rather in prosecuting individuals. The ICC was only founded in 2002, and on March they started a investigation following Palestinian demands about any crimes committed in Palestine starting June 2014, a protective edge. And the investigation was taking its course very slowly until this war started. And on May 2024, the prosecutor asked for arrest warrants against the leaders of Hamas as well as against the PM Netanyahu and then Minister of Defense Gallant. And they issued arrest against Mohammed Def that was not pronounced dead at the time. The other Hamas leaders were already pronounced dead, but Gallant and Netanyahu are not. And they said that there is a basis to assume that they starved people as a way of genocide, assaulted civilians deliberately, and murdered and prosecuted the Gazans, which is a great ammunition for this battle against Israel. And this court does have strength because all of the member states, 125 member states, are supposed to arrest and deliver to Hague anyone that there is an arrest warrant against. So Prime Minister Netanyahu has already cancelled some travels abroad. And these arrest warrants can also be issued in a hushed manner. So maybe there are other arrest warrants that we don't even know about. So there are two courthouses, both are international and both are conducting, us making statements that are accusing Israel of very severe crimes. And on that, we have the battle in the courts around the world, the one I started talking about. We heard of the soldier who had to leave Brazil and those soldiers who had to leave Holland and the high-ranking officers in Italy. And this is an attempt to work through the international courts in order to issue warrants against individuals who go and visit those countries. Up till this day, there wasn't any warrant issued, but even just the stress that it causes for those soldiers and their families and for all of us is already quite an achievement for the people leading this battle against us. So we have this juristic front internally and internationally that creates this very difficult battle. And we have a question arising here. What does it matter what Israel does? Or is it lost to begin with? Which brings me to the third and last part, what could and should be done? So my answer is the field is not leveled. It's not fair, but it's not the game is not lost before it started, and we do have something we could do. So we have political or geopolitical steps that could be taken. We have President Trump that issued sanctions against the prosecutor from the ICC, and the world may be headed towards directions of less interest in these things. But I want to focus on what we can control, what we can do in the immediate future. So there's great importance to what is said and done by us, by our high-ranking officials. And we need to take it into account. When we do something, when we say something, there are implications on the international arena. Something else, a very important step, is conducting inquiries. Apart from the internal moral, ethical aspect that is important on its own. Inquiries can really help us in this battle. And why? Let me be an attorney because of the complementary principle. And according to this principle, the ICC and other international courts are not to deal with anything when the relevant state already inquires and investigates itself honestly and genuinely. So that means that if we investigate itself ourselves, we can block these warrants and we can block those claims for genocide. No, and I'm not talking about a national inquiry committee. We need to focus on this, on in investigating those accusations against Israel. And another thing that should be remembered is that we hear the minority that is very loud, and we need to act vis-a-vis them. But we must remember that the silent majority that is more mitigated doesn't have an opinion yet about Israel, and this majority needs to be influenced. At the end of the day, we need to make a decision whether in this very difficult battle we need to surrender, or do we expect ourselves here and our leaders as well to fight the same way they fight the military battle. It's true that this battle is not fair, and we are being David facing Goliath, but it is not lost. To begin with, we must demand our leaders to be responsible, to speak responsibly, to demand investigations instead of fighting against those investigations taking place. And if we do all of that, then our soldiers would be able to travel abroad without always peeking behind their shoulders, concerned that someone is about to arrest them. And also, we will start the recovery of Israel international status.